There is a piece of America where the flag flies over houses that have no walls. Where the land cannot be sold to outsiders, 90% of it belongs to families and always will. Where people are born American, carry an American passport, and are not American citizens. And where more young men and women enlist in the US military per person than in any of the 50 states. 50,000 people live here in the South Pacific, 2,200 miles from Hawaii and roughly 7,000 kilometers more, by most routes, from Washington. Their biggest employer packs tuna. Their government is built on chiefs. Their island has been American since 1900, and Washington has never quite decided what that makes them. This is American Samoa. But how do you serve a country that will not call you a citizen? How does a place keep a 3,000-year-old way of life, Fa'a Samoa, inside the world's most powerful nation? And what does daily life look like on America's southernmost soil, where the sun goes down last? American Samoa lies south of the equator in the central Pacific. The only US, territory below the line, about 2,200 miles southwest of Hawaii, and a few dozen miles east of the independent nation of Samoa, with which it shares a people, a language, and a history. It is small, about 77 square miles of land, most of it on the main island of Tutuila, plus the Manua group to the east, Tar, Ofu and Olosega, the coral atoll of Rose, and Swains Island far to the north. Tutuila is a mountain in the sea, steep green volcanic ridges falling straight into the water, with villages strung along the narrow coast and almost no flat land anywhere. Its harbour, Pago Pago, is one of the finest natural harbours in the Pacific, a deep, sheltered inlet cutting into the island, ringed by cliffs and jungle. And it is the reason the United States wanted the place in the first place. The capital, Pago Pago, sits on that harbour, the government offices, the port, the tuna cannery, and the villages that have grown together into a town. Elsewhere the island is villages, each with its church, its Malay or village green, its meeting house, connected by one main road that hugs the coast. The climate is wet tropical, warm, humid and rainy, with cyclones in the southern summer. In September 2009, an 8.1 magnitude earthquake off the islands sent a tsunami into the Samoas and Tonga that killed more than 170 people, dozens of them in American Samoa, a reminder that this beautiful coast sits on one of the most active fault zones on the planet. Everything about the territory, its remoteness, its terrain, its harbour, its weather, has shaped a way of life that America absorbed without ever quite reshaping. Samoans have lived on these islands for some 3,000 years, and their social order, Fa'a Samoa, the Samoan way, is older than any European contact. Its foundation is the Aiga, the extended family, its authority is the Matai. The chiefs chosen by each family to lead it, and its wealth is communal land, held by families through their Matai, and never, in principle, sold. In the 19th century the Samoan Islands became a prize contested by Germany, Britain and the United States, chiefly for Pago Pago's harbour. In 1899 the powers divided the archipelago. Germany took the Western Islands, today's independent Samoa, and the United States took the East. In 1900 the chiefs of Tutuila ceded their islands to the US, and the Manua chiefs followed in 1904. The territory became, for half a century, a US Navy station. Crucially, the cession came with a promise the chiefs extracted. The United States would respect Samoan customs and protect Samoan land. That promise is why, more than a century later, the land is still communal and the Mati still govern the villages, and it is why American Samoa, alone among America's inhabited territories, has resisted every effort to bring it fully under US law. Islanders feared that incorporation would mean the end of communal land and of the chiefly system, and they chose deliberately to remain outside. That choice has a cost. People born in American Samoa are US nationals, not US citizens, a status found nowhere else in the inhabited United States. They carry American passports, they can live and work anywhere in the country, they can serve in its armed forces, and do, but they cannot vote for president, cannot hold many federal jobs, and must naturalize like an immigrant to become citizens. Courts have wrestled with the question for years, and a 2021 federal appeals ruling left the status in place. Many American Samoans, notably, want it that way, because the alternative could threaten the land. The Navy left in 1951. The territory has been governed since by its own elected governor and legislature, the whānau, whose upper house is drawn from the ranks of the Matai. It sends a non-voting delegate to Congress, and it has, quietly, produced more soldiers per capita than any state, a fact that sits at the centre of every argument about what America owes it. The 2020 census counted 49,710 people in American Samoa, about 83% ethnically Samoan, with communities of Tongans, Filipinos, other Pacific Islanders and Americans from the mainland. Almost everyone is Christian, more than 99%, and the church is the strongest institution in every village after the family. Samoan and English are both official. Samoan is the language of home. The economy stands on 3 legs. The first is tuna. The cannery in Pago Pago Harbour has for decades been the territory's largest private employer. Processing fish from the fleets of the Pacific into cans that line American supermarket shelves, tuna products are the island's main export by far. The second is government, territorial and federal, which employs a large share of the workforce and funds much of what the private economy cannot. The third is the money that comes home, remittances from the tens of thousands of American Samoans in Hawaii, California, Washington state and beyond, and the pay and pensions of the many who serve in the military. Wages are low by mainland standards, the federal minimum wage has been phased in here on a special schedule, and the cannery's economics have long depended on that. And prices are island prices, with most goods shipped in across thousands of miles. Families cope as Samoan families always have, together. Households are large, income is shared through the aiga, land, being communal, is not a rent bill, and the whālawe, the ceremonial obligations of weddings, funerals and titles, move money and goods through the community in a rhythm older than the dollar. Housing is the failed traditional open-sided houses with thatched or corrugated roofs on posts, cooled by the wind, alongside modern concrete homes. In many villages both stand together, and family life moves between them. Almost no one is a stranger. A village knows itself entirely. Health is a heavy subject. American Samoa carries some of the highest rates of obesity and diabetes in the world. A legacy of imported diet and change, the territory's one main hospital struggles with distance and funding, and serious cases fly to Hawaii. During the pandemic, remoteness became a shield. Strict entry controls kept the virus out for months longer than almost anywhere in America. A century earlier, in 1918, a Navy quarantine had spared the islands the influenza that devastated their neighbours, one of the few places on Earth to escape it. Money and land work differently here than anywhere else under the flag. Because most land is communal and cannot be sold, there is no real estate market of the mainland kind. No mortgages on village land, no speculators, no gentrification. A family's security is its aiga's land and its matai's title that has kept the villages Samoan. It has also kept outside investment away, and it is the reason the territory's private economy has stayed so small. Every debate about development on the islands is, at bottom, a debate about land. The federal government is a distant partner, it funds much of the budget, sets the rules the territory must follow to receive that funding, and administers programs designed for places with counties and mortgages and freeways. American Samoa translates all of it into Fa'a Samoa as best it can. And there is the recruiter. Military service is a path to citizenship, to college, to a career, and to honour in a warrior culture. American Samoa's enlistment rate has been reported as the highest of any US state or territory. Every village has its veterans, every ceremony honours them, and every argument about the island's status comes back to the same point, that a place which sends so many of its children to serve deserves to be treated as fully American in return. Far Samoa, the Samoan way, is the operating system of daily life. Respect for the matai and for elders. The primacy of the aigo over the individual. The village council deciding what the village does. The Sunday that stops everything, church in white. The umu, the earth oven, cooking since dawn, and the great family meal that follows. Visitors describe it as one of the most intact Polynesian societies left, and it is, partly because the United States promised, in 1900, not to touch it. Food is the food of the Pacific, taro and breadfruit, palusami, taro leaves baked in coconut cream, oka of raw fish in lime and coconut, pork from the umu, and the ubiquitous canned corned beef and tuna that tie the islands to the mainland's shelves. Feasting is a duty and an art. Music and dance carry the culture forward, church choirs of astonishing power, the Siva Samoa dances at every celebration, the Fiafia nights, and the ferocious sasa. Tattoo, the traditional pear for men and malu for women, remains a mark of commitment to the culture. Applied by hand with tools that predate contact. Rugby and American football are the great sports, and the island's contribution to the National Football League from a population of 50,000 has become a legend of American sport. Villagers track their sons in the league the way other towns track the weather. And there is a specific American Samoan patriotism visible on Flag Day, April 17, when the territory celebrates the raising of the US flag in 1900 with a fervour that surprises visitors who know the citizenship debate. The islands are, at once, deeply Samoan and deeply American, and see no contradiction. They chose the flag, and they chose to stay themselves under it. American Samoa holds one of the least visited national parks in the United States, a park unlike any other, because much of its land is leased from the villages that own it under Far Samoa. It stretches across parts of Tutuila and the Manua Islands, rainforest that climbs volcanic ridges to cloud, coral reefs, and on Tar, one of the world's largest known coral colonies, a single dome of coral centuries old. The islands are wet, steep and green, flying foxes at dusk, seabirds on the cliffs. Humpback whales offshore in the southern winter. Pago Pago harbour, for all its port and cannery, is ringed by mountains that fall into the sea. The villages along the coast look up at walls of jungle. The sea is a giver and a threat. It brought the tuna fleets and the cannery. It brought the tsunami of 2009 that killed dozens here in a morning, and it brings the cyclones each season. Climate change raises the water around villages built at the shoreline because there was nowhere else to build. The first challenge is status, American nationals without citizenship, a delegate without a vote, and a decades-long legal argument about whether the Constitution reaches these islands, an argument the islanders themselves are divided on, because full inclusion could threaten the land and the chiefs. Being not quite American is both a grievance and, for many, a shield. The second is the economy's narrowness, one cannery, one government, remittances, and a private sector that has never quite grown. When the cannery wavers, as it has, repeatedly, over wages, tariffs, and fish, the whole territory holds its breath. The third is health, obesity and diabetes at rates that shorten lives, and a medical system stretched across thousands of miles of ocean. The fourth is people, the steady flow of young American Samoans to Hawaii and the mainland, for the military, for college, for work, leaving an aging population and villages that count their absent sons. The island's greatest export is not tuna, it is their children. And the fifth is the sea and the sky, cyclones, tsunamis, rising water on a coast where the villages have always stood. The independent nation next door, Samoa, is the mirror the territory looks into. Same language, same culture, same families across the strait, a different flag, a different currency, and no American passport. American Samoans watch their cousins' independence with a mixture of pride and relief, and their cousins watch the American money with a mixture of envy and doubt. Both know that the 1899 line was drawn by others. Both have made it home. Yet Far Samoa endures, more intact here than almost anywhere in Polynesia, protected, ironically, by the very arrangement that leaves the islanders outside full citizenship. American Samoa chose its bargain in 1900 and has kept its side of it ever since. Come to a village on Tutuila on a Sunday morning. The church is white against the green mountain, the choir can be heard from the road, the umu has been smoking since before light. In front of an open-sided fail, the American flag hangs beside a family's own, and on the wall inside, in a frame, a photograph of a son in army uniform. Everyone here is American. None of them, by law, is a citizen. All of them, this morning, are exactly where they belong. The United States took these islands for a harbour and promised, in return, to leave the Samoan way alone. Both sides kept the promise. What remains is the strangest and perhaps most honourable arrangement under the flag, a people who gave America their harbour and their soldiers, and asked only to remain themselves. American Samoa is not just a territory, it is a reminder that people can give everything to a flag that still calls them by another name, and keep, through all of it, the name they had first.